still daylight out, we'd probably still be allowed in here.
The oldest inhabitant of the cemetery, when the church was originally built, it was built frame on ground, basically. So you had the large beams. The church was constructed by boat builders, and we can see that by the signatures of the way in which they built the building. But after a time, when they built the building, they said, we need more space, basically. We need room for Sunday school and prayer and all that. So they decided to dig a basement. When they dug the basement, they found the original inhabitants of the farmland, 1657.
Wow.
I think.
A family burial
Yeah,
ground.
and so they found the remains there. They exhumed them. This was
And then they buried them somewhere else.
hundreds of years ago. But then we buried them right over here.
Oh, okay.
In the cemetery.
See? Unexpected history.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was just going to come get you, Tony, about the Ward Melville. I said, that must be part of...
Yeah.
And I was going to look it up on my phone. The father here just told us what it is from.
So I'll show you that site.
I had no idea about the Tom McCann. That's very
No.
interesting as
It's
well.
so interesting.
And I think my phone wasn't working right with that, so I gotta save myself later on.
You'd never know this particular site was because everything has such prominence with it. But this is built out of, or the headstone is built out of a brownstone.
Oh.
You think of brownstones in Brooklyn. And,
Right.
and that sort of area. And this is that stone. This is the original stone, which was etched here.
Wow.
And it's hard to read. 1657 is what I
Oh,
believe.
it's on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in 1917, they were exhumed, and their remains were placed here.
Please here.
Yeah.
Whatever was left. That didn't
But here
dissolve.
you have a great deal of Revolutionary War soldiers, ship captains, because this was a boat building
Right.
industry area. A lot of that sort of thing.
You know.
Say it when you can't read again,
Yeah.
but
Well,
we
we're in the
understand
process
what-
of restoring.
Oh.
Did you talk to the historical society? Because there's a guy I know
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
in charge of that's restoring tombstones.
That's what
that
we're
works
doing.
there. Good.
Yep, they're here every week.
Good.
Or once a month, actually. And so what's interesting too is everyone in this churchyard, regardless of the way that the writing on the stone faces, is facing east.
Yeah.
And the significance of that is both coupled with Anglican and Christian theology, but it's the notion that when Christ returns, when the sun rises, S-O-N-S-U-N, the sun will rise from the east facing Jerusalem.
That's right.
And so they'll sit up in their graves and
So
recognize.
even though it's on this side, they could be buried on this
Well,
side?
this is the footstone.
Oh, I didn't know if that was... Okay.
Yeah, these are the footstones.
Okay.
So, and then
interesting.
I'll show you over here. I'll show you my two
I want
favorites.
to see if I can get a
I didn't know any of them.
So you'll notice that some of the headstones look relatively coppery,
Yeah.
if you will. And the reason for that is because we're in the process of cleaning them.
Oh, okay.
We use a special agent to clean them.
A
We've been really,
solution, right.
yeah. It's called, I think, D2 or D3, and so these were just sprayed today. And so what will happen over the course of just a week or so is it will kill all the lichens, all the mold, all
Right.
the, what you have. But our biggest enemy, to be honest, is acid rain.
Really?
Acid rain is what erodes most of the stones more than anything. So these are marble, and so a marble stone will erode quite fast compared to that of the others. My favorite personal headstone in the whole place
Okay.
is, if you look over there, you see the one that's sort of battleship gray.
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason it's my favorite is because it speaks to our generation before our generation got here.
This
Because
one.
that particular headstone is hollow. It's made of cast iron, and it was ordered out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Really?
So it's sort of like Amazon-y, you know what I mean?
that's
Yeah.
A little bit of
So you could
Amazon.
have got anything from Sears and Roebuck.
Yeah. Shotguns,
Yeah.
houses,
Anything.
you know,
A house,
anything that
yeah.
a house, anything that you wanted. So the significance of having that there is pretty unique.
Yeah.
And these stones are quite well preserved, and the reason is because we had rhododendrons growing here for
And they protect them.
quite a bit.
And
We
it
just
protected
recently
them.
cut them back, but they were protecting the
Yeah.
marble stones from
Wow.
erosion
Yeah.
relative to the acid rain. But I'll show you
Yeah,
my.
because those are still pretty good,
Yeah.
where you could read them.
Yeah.
Who's this right here? This is somebody famous.
So that's a brownstone headstone.
1799.
Yeah. And this is Emma Clark, relative to the library across the street.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was,
And Hodgkins, who's a direct descendant of the Hodgkins that's over there at Setauket.
it was funny. I was at the library one day, over here, gathering information, and the librarian was helping me great. But there was two older ladies behind me saying, "You're an atheist." I said, "Excuse me, you want to investigate?" I said, "I'm in history.
Yeah. This
I
is all
believe in
part
the
of it.
Lord.
Yeah. this
I
is all
treat
part
and I
of it.
treat them like they're my family."
Yeah.
Father, you sure we're not taking up your
No,
time?
it's fine. It's fine. I don't mind sharing. Anybody who's interested, I'm willing to share.
Oh, we love historic places.
Yes, history.
So I'm not sure how did you come here? Did you come to
We
come
were
down Nichols Road?
we
or-
came down the back way here.
Okay.
We came to Nichols Road, we made it right, and came down the back way.
Okay.
We did.
So this is really significant for the area.
Okay.
This is the headstone for Charles Seabury. Charles Seabury is the son of Samuel Seabury. Samuel Seabury was the first bishop in the United States of America for
Oh,
the
wow.
Anglican and Episcopal Church.
That is.
But Charles is his son. The chairs in the church, which I'll show you, come from his father's office
Oh, wow.
that we use in regular worship. But the fact that he's buried here, and the reason I asked you where you came from, because if you were to go down to where the Long Island Museum was,
Yeah.
following 25A,
Yeah.
all that land, most of the land in this area was owned by the Seabury family, mostly horse farms. And
That's
things
why
of
they
that
sound
nature.
familiar. I was reading about that.
But the proximity of this is important because it sets in parallel to our altar.
Okay.
So it's relative to where our worship happens.
Oh,
That's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah, and so certainly a significant placement
Sure.
within the property.
Was that done purposely?
oh,
Like when they
for,
built?
for certain.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Or
so
was that just
he was
fluke?
the
Yeah.
second priest here. James Wetmore was the first priest, which interestingly at St. James Episcopal Church, his direct descendant is the pastor there, Father Ian Wetmore.
Wow.
But you can see, this is marble, so marble erodes much
Yeah.
faster than the granite and stuff. But he's here with his wife and his family.
Beautiful stone.
But it sets relative
Really?
to the altar. I'll take you in real quick.
So
and show you the
cool.
Right.
We never thought we'd have a little tour,
And I love
a
it.
little history.
I love
Thank
it.
you so much for
Today's
doing
like one
this,
of the
sir.
longest days of the year too. So
Yeah,
the
you're
sun's
right.
out,
It's the longest day.
Good chance to see some things.
That's right. It is the longest day of the year.
So these are not the original doors to the facility. The original doors are actually downstairs. But the significance of this place is that the Anglicans Anglican Church of England, Episcopalian, now Episcopalian, but they were worshiping at Setauket Presbyterian. And then they were Scotsmen, and they started preaching with muskets in their hands and talking about revolution and made a lot of people in this area uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think it was about 16 people. They were sort of not excommunicated, but they decided to leave.
Right.
And they worshipped in a barn that still exists down next to the Ward Melville Pond. in
Okay.
the park. That barn has moved around quite a bit, but that's where they worshipped. And then they wanted to have a pastor, a priest that could come and lead them. But the challenge was when they wrote back to the king and said, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is what the Anglican church needs, they said build a church first. And so they were tasked with coming in and building a church. And so they used the manner with which that they had in order to do that. And many of those people that did that work were boat builders at the time, because that was such a
Yeah,
commerce,
that was huge,
at the
Such a
time.
pretty old church from the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah,
I haven't even
yeah.
seen the inside yet, and I can imagine it's beautiful. So,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
thank you.
Entering the Caroline Church.
So this is Caroline Church, and for the most part, it is as it was. The only thing that is different is, which is a condition of my employment, it has air conditioning.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But what would be different here would be lead painted glass, lead glass, and not stained glass or painted glass as what you see here. So like the one with the anchor, that's painted glass.
Right.
Here you see both painted and stained glass.
Okay.
But the seating would have been a little bit different too. That would have been what we call box seating. So box seating was relative to what you paid to the church. So the more you paid in your tithe, the closer
The
you
closer you got to the
you could set up front.
sanctuary.
But what would have also been here was a big potbelly stove, right in this
For
area.
heating.
For the heat
Yeah,
in the
for the
winter.
heating. So they prime that stove and warm it up. It's the same thing that they do in many rural churches in Canada that are Anglican
Mm-hmm.
as well. And a lot of the Anglican churches, I'm not sure if it's specifically this church, but they put bed irons.
What's the year of this church?
1729.
Wow.
I know.
So
Awesome.
this is the second oldest continuous use Episcopal church in the United States. Same building, same congregation, different people.
In the United States.
I would say North America.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to. I was ordained in Canada.
Okay.
I've worked in Canada. This is definitely the oldest wooden Anglican church in North America.
It's such a beautifully preserved church.
It
Like,
is.
It is.
It's just, it's amazing
Yeah.
for its age.
Well, because it's so alive. I mean, this is living history because the people
is.
still are coming to service every
Right.
Sunday. We have a congregation of about 690
I was
people.
going to ask you.
Wow.
We do.
So that's
roughly-
more than one mass.
Oh, we do 5 on
Yeah.
the weekend, yeah, and 7 total for the week.
Wow.
But Potbelly would be here, bed irons potentially on that relative to the tradition. You come in, you pick up your bed iron, would have been wood floors, you bring it to your box, you put it down on the floor, you put your skirt over it, you put
Right,
your
so
And it
you
keeps,
jacket
warm.
over
and
it.
it keeps you
the
warm.
radiant heat.
Or your wool coat or
Yeah,
something, yeah.
and the services would run roughly, 3 to 4 hours. So, I mean, there would be breaks in there,
Sure.
obviously, but
Sure.
and then we have our church structure is similar to the Catholic in the way that we would have wardens of the church. They're like the lay people that run the church. Their responsibility would be to keep people awake, keep that fire burning,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. But this particular building is served as a hospital. It served as an officer's quarters. It served as probably a barn where they put animals during the week.
But that didn't know.
And so the context
Wow.
for that is, we think of the church and we think of the altar rail. And we think of that, if you think about it in Old Testament scripture, it's the Holy of the Holies place.
Right.
Historically, it would have been a place that only a priest could go. As the Christian religion progressed, it would become less of a, what are they doing in there versus what we're doing out here sort of thing. But the altar rail certainly is a place for prayerful contemplation and that sort of thing. But in a church in the 1700s and the church in the 1600s, the church rail there around the altar had a really practical purpose. And the practical purpose of that was to keep what? What do you think? What would a fence or a rail?
Keep him escaping.
Keep people out.
To keep the animals from getting towards the tithe.
Okay.
And so,
That's right, because animals were kept in here, you
yeah,
said.
if animals were kept in here and the principal tithe is something that you produce yourself, your rutabaga, your potatoes,
Right,
your wheat,
right.
Oh, they
your
would eat
corn.
it all up, right?
Yeah.
So we put it on the altar to be blessed, but this cool space would be the space that it would be occupied in. And I'm not saying specifically for this church, but rhetorically in the Anglican tradition.
Right.
And so you'd want to be able to keep that differentiation. And so in that same regard, a lot of the Anglican churches, not this church, but a lot of Anglican churches historically, especially in England, are built with a pitch. So you're walking up towards the altar, and the reason for that
Makes
is
it
so you
harder.
can muck the church out.
Yeah.
And then you'd bring in the incense and things like that. That
Right, clear
would,
it
that would
out.
hide the stinky animals,
Yeah.
the stinky church, the stinky people,
Right.
and maybe even the stinky priest. So it will allow you that
Yeah.
kind of opportunity
Wow.
to see it. The other thing is, I'd say these lamps are, they're LED now, but they used to run on a different kind of fuel. What kind of fuel do you think they ran on? Keep in mind of the industry in the area. There's a fishing industry, so.
Oil, like oil lamps?
Whale?
Yeah, whale oil.
Oil oil.
Whale oil.
Yeah, so these would be whale oil lamps which the luminosity for whale oil, I don't know what it is exactly.
And they have to light them with the long
Yeah,
pole.
but the dish on the bottom would be the
They
one
fill it.
containing the oil.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And then
so-
they would have to put them out, snuff them.
No, let them run out.
They would let them run out.
So it'd be in the entire bowl,
Okay.
and it would,
And
it would,
just burn out.
yeah, it would just burn as it burned. So, but again, box pews, as I mentioned, this church faces east. Most Episcopal churches, rhetorically, historically, and in modernity, attempt to face east because of
Right.
facing Jerusalem. But in this particular altar, we're not able to get behind it. Although there's a lot of movement in the church, they want us to get behind it. I say, just me personally, no. You got to preserve what is
Yeah.
historically
Correct.
important.
Sure.
So, facing east in that regard. And then you can see the construction. If you were to flip this church upside down, what would the ceiling look like?
A boat.
Yeah, the hull of a boat.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can see a lot of signatures there with regard to the boat building. Also, the way that they assemble the timber. It's not fine cut. It's a
Right.
very broad cut. But this church, I think, from my experience in construction and things like that, was probably overbuilt, and to its advantage.
Yeah.
That
'Cause
it's
it's
last.
still standing.
Yeah,
Are these
absolutely.
original windows?
These windows were put in, I believe, in 1922.
Okay.
I was
That
gonna
was about the time of Ward Melville. A real impetus there to refurbish the church and bring it back to.
The beautiful windows.
yeah, yeah.
I bet when you get
Just
the light,
gorgeous.
you know.
Yeah.
I saw the
keep
one
looking at that
one
one.
window
It's
has
so beautiful.
lights behind
Yeah,
it.
that's the Gerstenberg window. The reason that window sets hovering is because behind it are the organ pipes for the mechanical and the digital
Okay.
organ.
Yeah.
And then behind those pipes there's a whole nother room